Past and present lives heavy +sign fantasy adventure heavy +sign white moonlight revenge heavy +sign vest suspense heavy +sign ancient style group statues 10,000 years ago, she was a 3 meridian divine body, carrying the legend of ancient divine beasts coming to the world. 10,000 years later, her spirit and soul were all damaged, and she returned for the blood feud of her hand blade. Unexpectedly opening a unique path, carrying the mission of clearing the heavenly way from the demon realm desert to the human whale landing from rivers, seas, and wastelands to the ice palace of the divine realm. She originally thought that this was the way to obtain the most precious treasure of heaven and earth, the mirror of cause and fate. Unexpectedly, I walked step by step to the enemy's attention and returned to the 6 realms. Full-level Big Boss Novice Village. It is the experience of the mortal world, and also the original intention of the Goddess One. Qimen Divine Domain in the Demon Realm. 2. Whales fall from all things on earth. 3. The sorrowful bamboo returns to its homeland. 4. The blaze prison of the Phantom Realm. 5. Searching for the original intention in the vast sea in an instant. Is 6 realms white moonlight returning to the old hall, the lonely swan tirelessly, Qimen young master. The Luan mirror mourns and dies without regret, ancient divine beast. Urgently needed for 10,000 years, the same age as you, worthy demon king. Willing to be a goddess and protect the world, green dragon god of war. Lost and regained, I see you with no regrets. Note 1. The female protagonist's initial amnesia is due to her golden finger, which becomes stronger as she is injured. 2. The female lead is intelligent and high-dimensional, with a false sense of maturity and dullness in the early stages and a strong sense of clarity in the later stages. 3. This article is slow and brain-burning, with a lot of foreshadowing in the vest. Chapter 1. Flowering in weak waters, different divine trees. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Clouds and mist shrouded, an immortal aura condensed into flowers. The emerald color flowed and scattered with dewdrops. The cranes scattered in all directions, and a small figure, like a startled bird, shuttled between the towering ancient trees. The girl rushed out from behind a huge green jade tree with a frightened expression, and in a hurry, she fell onto the soft grass covered in falling petals. The sound of relentless pursuit came faintly, and she got up and continued to run. Passing through the swaying bamboo shadows, passing through one crystal cave after another surrounded by rosy light, as if appearing ethereal, until drilling into a closed and narrow dark crack hidden behind the 9 heavenly pavilion. The walls were cold, oblivious to all sounds, and the girl held on to her knees, trembling uncontrollably. Tears swirled in her eyes, and she dared not breathe too heavily or too quickly. In the dead silence, only her trembling heart was pounding. Time seems to have stretched the lines, and the outer steps become clearer. Close and far, each time approaching, it feels like a sharp blade cutting through the skin, making people shiver all over. Suddenly, with a click sound, my heart suddenly went out of sync, and there was a long silence around me as if it had come to a standstill. The door was slammed open. In an instant, golden light poured into the tightly sealed interior, and the girl covered her face with her hands, trying to block the dazzling light. Under the backlight, the silhouette of a tall figure leaked out between the fingers, making it difficult to see his face clearly. He could only vaguely see himself walking towards him with a shiny long knife. That person walked steadfastly and without hesitation, carrying the cold will of the judge, as if emerging from the chaos. The girl instinctively retreated to the deepest corner, watching him move step by step towards herself. He finally stopped in front of the wall door, bent down, and spat out a ghostly and cold murmur. "I've found you." Her pupils suddenly tightened, and in the next moment, the person's fingers were bulging with veins, and they reached out to grab her throat. As the killing intent enveloped her body, she couldn't help but exclaim, "Ah!" Puff. One sat on a square stone and suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. The birds sing in the west, and the sun enters the deep darkness. In front of her was a pool of weak water that was as deep as the sky, trickling down like pearls and making a sound like shattered jade. In the distance, the sun is sandwiched between two mountains, and mountain springs and streams converge at the foot of the mountain to form a pool. She wiped the blood from the corner of her mouth, covered her rapidly undulating chest, and let out a long sigh. Once again, practicing stagnation. Recently, during the peak of her cultivation and wandering, there are always some unusual memory fragments appearing in the sea of consciousness. There is no beginning or end, and she is born out of thin air. Sometimes I see a crimson soldering iron, sometimes I stand on a ferry, playing games with a bunch of gamblers in a daze, and it seems like I am being publicly executed in prison. Like all sorts of things, she flew across the fertile fields without finding a similar place. And among them, the most repeated is her escape in a fairyland and being choked by someone in that narrow space. The scattered blue sky was pushed away by the warm wind, and the girl stretched out her soft skirt, letting it anchor in her palm. She looked up at the divine tree extending into the sky, its spiritual power majestic, and couldn't help but furrow her brows. The immortal tree has bloomed. One stood by the weak water abyss, with a pair of autumn water cutting his pupils, lingering light sorrow, as if there were unfinished words. But why is Auntie unhappy? This is the first time she has had an argument with her aunt. Since she mentioned to her aunt about her shattered dreams that had been delayed in her recent cultivation, and accompanied her aunt to witness the immortal tree that had not bloomed for thousands of years, giving birth to a little bit of vermilion, her aunt's expression changed greatly and she was daydreaming all day long. She investigated the cause, but it rarely angered her aunt. One thought that his aunt must have been extremely angry, so she turned around and threw herself into the secret room. No matter how much she compromised and begged for mercy, she refused to take another step. The shimmering waves danced above her long eyelashes, lazy in the past. This was her first time, and she developed a desire to pry into the outside world. Legend has it that all things sink in weak waters, goose feathers do not float, and immortals and Buddhas find it difficult to cross. She couldn't help but ponder whether she knew the land in the sea, which was beyond the weak waters and referred to as the human world in the storybook. And who is the person who is chasing and harming oneself? She wanted to see her face clearly, but unfortunately, she got stuck here every time. One remembered that her aunt was urging her to cultivate more and more fervently. For the 101st time, she told herself, stay calm and composed. This time, you must complete it all in one go, coaxing your aunt to express her emotions and relieve her depression. As she once again entered the realm of spiritual transformation and reaching the realm of creation, an unprecedented oppressive aura rushed towards her. As soon as she opened her eyes, the usually silent and waveless weak water flipped upwards, intersecting perpendicular to the earth. She couldn't help but widen her beautiful eyes and said, what kind of scene is this? It's hard not to blame my aunt for not letting me get close. Is it difficult or not? Actually, it's different when the water is weak. One flew down from the rock and as soon as she approached, a green object flew towards her. Cleverly transformed into her, she raised her hand and squeezed two flames into one, pushing towards the servant. Just as it was rushing towards her, she saw clearly that little green snake. Recently, one discovered a green snake that had failed to transform into a dragon by the edge of the weak water. He intended to treat it, but he thought Luan was going to eat it and turned around to throw himself into the weak water. In the fertile fields, there are many spiritual spirits and small monsters, most of whom have only a slight cultivation, and even a drop of weak water can make their souls flee. She cursed the little snake for its lack of intelligence while rushing forward. It was also at this moment that she realized for the first time that she was not afraid of weak water splashing, but the little snake had disappeared without a trace. Thinking about this, she couldn't help but marvel. It turned out that weak water was not rumored to be terrifying either. Apart from swallowing people, she could also spit it out. Damn it. I had already forced it to jump into the river earlier, and my aunt said that cause and effect are connected, both cause and effect. I practiced the law of heaven, earth, and spirit, creating innocent killing or fear of sin, which hinders great success. In a moment of thought, she hurriedly stopped. It was already too late, watching it pass through the flames from far to near, from a green snake to a green-black snake. Very good, truly the body of a half-stepped dragon, with thick and durable leather. Although I had stopped, in a daze, I felt as if I could see it looking down at me, as if my eyes were tired. Auntie is right. When practicing, one should trace back to the source and not always seek out the methods of gaining benefits from other sources. If one does not run around recklessly, how can they add to the killing? One accepted his fate and took the green snake. After investigating, he breathed a sigh of relief and said, "Fortunately, the fertile land is vast, but unfortunately, this little snake has met me with good luck." When he returned to the wooden house, one pushed open the door and stared at Lear with big and small eyes. Lear is a true spirit, and every time her aunt enters the secret room, she will make her come to supervise and take care of Yin. Startled for 5 breaths, Wan, who had glanced at the red marks on her face, took the initiative and pretended to be heartbroken, saying, "Lear, Auntie has ordered you to take care of me. Even if you are greedy and playful in your daily life, your cultivation is also insatiable. With a reference like you in front, how should I progress?" Luan, the leader of the Luan clan, has been stuck in immortality for many years. You said, with the support of the Feather clan, when can we support this world? Leah was intimidated for a moment before confessing her grievances. "Miss, it's really not my fault. The insects provided by the Scale clan have been fatter and stronger recently. For some reason, I can't help but take 2 more bites each time. As soon as I enter the mysterious realm, I always feel drowsy." Yin raised his hand and smoothed her wrinkled collar, saying, "I'll just ignore it this time. You don't have to go to my aunt's face to confess. Fortunately, I was thirsty just now when I practiced and went to fetch Li Chuan, so I could supervise you in a timely manner. With sincerity and hard work, we must let my aunt see the results when she leaves the border." Lear changed her mood and her eyes seemed to sparkle with flames. "Don't worry, girl. I'll go back to the house right now. I won't leave the house for 40.9 days without repairing it." Luan patted her shoulder with satisfaction, gesturing for her to work hard quickly. As Luan passed by, something suddenly flashed through her mind. "Lear, do you know which snake cave in Woi has lost its relatives?" Lear turned around and pondered for a moment before shaking her head. "I haven't heard of it before. Miss, is she planning to supplement her spirit with food? Although our feathered tribe is naturally carnivorous, we rely on the fair governance of the Luan bird clan leader to occupy one side. Small insects are useless, but if we were to catch the Lin insect with great spiritual power, we might." Luan grabbed her already sparse yellow hair and said, "Apart from eating, you can't hold anything else in your mind." "I burned. I saved a small snake, and currently I can't tell which side of the Linchong's power it comes from, but its injuries are complex. If there is a snake cave looking for someone, remember to let someone know to me. Miss, you still have a kind heart." "Humph, these Lin Chong generation always say that we are powerful and bully them. If you want me to be miss, whether he is dead or injured, if he doesn't fry it and eat it, it will be his good fortune. The difference between 1 meal of saturation and 1 meal of fullness is really unclear." Yin carefully taught, "We, the feathered tribe, are not the small-bellied and chicken-bellied generation in the mouth of the Linchong. Although the Linchong tribe is cold and indifferent, at least they provide us with a lot of food." Immediately recalling the small snake's injury, he quickly waved his hand and said, "All right, hurry up and practice. Don't forget to inquire." Li Er responded in a crisp voice, and before closing the door, she didn't forget to mutter, "Miss, in a few days it will be the crown ceremony for the young clan leader. Don't be so engrossed in your cultivation that you miss the time to add the crown." Luan raised his hand to support his forehead. "A woman of the Yu ethnic group is 3,000 years old and has a hairpin, while a man is 4,000 years old and has a crown. She was barely 100 or 200 years old when he called her sister. Somehow, the old clan leader abandoned his highly respected uncle and forced her to sing wishes for his grandson when he was crowned. Since she passed away, there has been an unwarranted eagerness in her eyes. Waving away those unrealistic thoughts, one placed the green snake on a stone plate that was usually used to save people, swallowed it for several weeks, and a blue flame circulated in his palm. The fireworks she cultivates are red and scorching, used to harm people. The green color is warm and moist, but it has a healing effect. This vast wilderness is vast, and any difficult and complicated illness that cannot be cured by the renowned physician Wei Ji can be cured no matter how stubborn he is. My aunt once blurted out that even in the vast wilderness, only she could simultaneously cultivate these two completely opposite types of fireworks. Having two extremes can both cure and harm people. I asked my aunt again, but she didn't answer anything. Therefore, she thought that if one day she could cultivate and comprehend the Tao, she would be able to understand the key points and also solve the mystery of her sea consciousness. Chapter 2. Singing and Praying for the New Year, with the Appearance of Danger and Danger. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. The night falls like a waterfall, hanging low on the field. Tonight, there are no stars or wind, only a round moon hanging alone in the sky. It's a full moon. The most sacred place in the fertile land is the sacrificial field, which is a square for auspicious and inauspicious ceremonies. In the center of the square stands an altar made of licorice trees. On grand festivals, long and bright flames will ignite around, and regardless of the ethnicity, people will come to the bonfire dinner to drink a bowl of liqueur liquor brewed by their mothers themselves. After completing the ritual ceremony, the senior clan leader usually kills the meat and divides the food, and each clan member will also give their strengths and compete for beauty and strength. At that time, the Wan bird was free and singing, while the Feng bird was free and dancing. It was thriving, and the young people either knew how to drink or how to make wine orders. The girls would sing and dance around the campfire, and the aunties would always touch the spring water and gather to pray for them until dawn. Wan grew up with Shiryu from a young age, but in the past, she was confused. At that time, Yu was just a chirping bird chick. Now, as she watched him walk far away, his clothes flying gracefully, she suddenly realized that at some point, Shiryu had grown into a tree full of orchids and jade, with a bright moon in her arms. As he approached, his eyes were shining brightly at the moment they touched her. Wan Yin finally knew where the Milky Way in the sky had gone tonight, not elsewhere, but completely disappeared into his eyes. Shiryu's eyes suddenly raised a curved new moon and he softly shouted, "Sister." The old clan chief coughed fiercely beside her for a while before pursing his lips and suppressing his smile. However, his eyes kept casting at her, with an uncontrollable sweetness hanging from the corner of his mouth. The prayer ending of the main ceremonial coronal priest echoes in all directions. May the heavens and earth, the sun, the moon, and the stars, prosper and endure for a long time, may our ancestors and talents be honored, and may our nation be safe and prosperous for a long time, and our descendants be healthy. Following the beginning of heaven and earth, heading towards the mother of all things, now the 17th generation young master of the feather tribe's Wan bird lineage, bowing and crowning when the fish is long. Shiryu knelt down and bowed to the old clan leader, whose eyes were slightly red. He took the golden feather crown from the tray presented by the attendant and tied it around him, causing his hand to tremble slightly. Sing and wish. Shiryu looked up at Wan Yin and saw her take a sweet wood sprout from the burning flames, apply the technique of green flames, and walk around him 3 times. She nodded on his forehead, supplemented by magic, and slowly recited the blessings of the feather tribe to avoid disasters. The young man's eyebrows and eyes are devout and sincere, as if there are bright moon and star waves in his eyes, affectionately believing. As she dropped the last word in her mouth, she obediently pushed the double fireworks towards him, her lips and teeth lightly parted, and she spat out, "Go." The crimson flame immediately enveloped him and surrounded him, overflowing endlessly without harming him at all. He stood up, the flames responding, and Luan cast an encouraging look at him. He fixed his gaze again, then jumped up and transformed into his original form, soaring into the sky. The red golden crown transforms into a golden feather on the top of the head, and the brilliant flowing light coils around the altar, casting an indigo blue light across the sky. Li Cheng, kowtow. Guan Si knelt down and shouted loudly, wishing you all the best in your life. Revitalize our nation, prosper and prosper forever. The people of our tribe knelt down one after another and agreed, sway all year round. Revitalize our tribe, prosper and prosper forever. The old clan leader was filled with satisfaction and waved his hand to the audience, saying, "Good. May all the tribes in the fertile fields continue to prosper and prosper for a long time." Qi, Li Chuan wine. The cheers were incessant, and amidst laughter and anger, there was a clanging sound of pottery jars colliding with each other. There were people carrying meat and standing up shouting and drinking, some running towards their mothers to fetch wine, and some shouting for Luan and Feng to sing, chasing and playing in pairs. She has never seen the world before, but she never finds the fertile land growing day by day. Luan, who had just finished teasing the girls, crawled out from under the arm holding her hand. Coincidentally, you dived down and stood in front of her in a transformed human form. She couldn't help but praise Yorong. All right, the jade tree is in the wind, like a person. When a blush rose on Yu's cheek, he shyly lowered his head, but then lifted it again in an instant, as if eager to prove something. He took her hand and pulled at a cluster of golden hair on his head, saying, "Sister, I have grown up, I have finally grown up. Look, my golden feathers are more than other men of the feather tribe." Before he could finish speaking, Grandpa lifted his sleeve and waved his hand towards him. Shi Yu's eyelids twitched, and without hesitation, he flashed behind Luan. The old chieftain had been piling up for a long time, scolding and scolding, "You stinky kid, I have reminded you to bow with dignity and composure. In front of everyone, you even teased Luan. You are so stubborn. How can I trust you to hand over the fertile land to you in the future?" Shi Yu grinned from behind, running and muttering, "But I haven't seen my sister for many days. What are the rules of coronation, fasting, and bathing?" Then he leaned over to Luan and said, "Sister, what have you been busy with lately? Have you missed me?" Luan's eyes were dazzled as he followed, and he had to laugh to stop him. Upon hearing this, he turned his head and fiercely gouged out Shi Yu's eyes. Shi Yu gave him a bright smile. Seeing the old clan leader with a cold and stern expression, his anger grew even stronger. As soon as he uttered the word "you," Luan finally caught his sleeve and intervened, saying, "Grandpa clan leader, fortunately he didn't make any major mistakes today. The process is orderly and the overall situation is stable and steady. The truth is, we can slowly teach it in the future. At this moment, everyone is in front of us. Let's talk about it when we go back, let's talk about it when we go back." Luan's words always worked in front of the old patriarch. After all, he stopped to save face, but still pointed to Shi Yu angrily. "Stinky boy, if you have Luan and half decent, I will take less dim sum and save more lives." She smiled inwardly and listened to the old clan leader say, "Luan, thank you very much for singing and enlightening this kid today. With your singing, even if I go to the end of my life, I will feel at ease." Luan couldn't quite understand what the old clan leader was saying, and he wondered in his heart. Luan's clan leader's magical power was far superior to hers. Although she was a little stronger than her peers, how could she be worthy of his description? With this in mind, she quickly bowed and said, "Grandpa's words are heavy. After my parents left, I followed my aunt here to Nag. I have been sheltered by you for so many years. If it weren't for you giving me a place to live, I wouldn't have known where to go. This small matter is really not worth mentioning." The old clan chief pressed down on her bow and said, "How could this be protected by me? The fertile fields will last forever, and protecting you is clearly my duty. His voice changed and he said, "Has Aunt Wenyuan not come out of the secret room yet?" Luan paused slightly and said in a muffled voice, "Aunt has indeed stayed for a long time this time. If it weren't for my persistent exploration of the flowering of the divine tree, I wouldn't have angered Aunt." The old clan chief hesitated and asked, "One may have seen clearly the appearance of the goddess in the painting." One heard the old clan chief's endless sentence, as if implying that his aunt had hidden secrets behind her closed door. She honestly replied, "I still can't. Since my parents left, I've always felt a lot confused. When I wake up, I often feel resistance when magic wanders. I remember their voices, smiles, and many things intermittently. This painting of a goddess embodies supreme divine power, and I can't see it clearly, and I have no way to start. My aunt said that it will only be discovered after I have completed my cultivation." The old clan chief traced back his memory and sighed, "Your parents are both excellent. Without them, there would be no peace in the world like the wilderness of all worlds. You are a good child, and so are Shiryu's parents." Shiryu rushed out and shouted, "What sad words to say on a good day." He smiled shyly at Luan and said, "Sister, Lear's notebook. Notes on the life of the mortal world. States that when a man is crowned with a crown, he must invite a woman to dance in order to be considered an adult. Today, I am experiencing the joy of coronation as mentioned in the book. Sister, please accompany me to dance a dance." After a moment of silence, Luan rebuked him with righteous words, "Foolish. We, the elves of the Feather Tribe, can barely be considered half a fairy. Ordinary people have no power to bind chickens. What bad habits should we learn from him and use them to grind time? We must not take them seriously. But on the 9th day of last month, you promised me that no matter what I wanted to do on this day, you would accompany me." Shiryu stood there with his head buried, feeling as aggrieved as a rabbit spirit. Luan's mind flashed past the usual scene of taking him to play around, and he concealed the punishment for her. He softened his voice and said, "It's not that I don't want to, I've never learned. I'll teach you. I have a foolish aptitude, and I haven't made much progress in my thousands of years of cultivation. If I delay your coronation celebration, I'm afraid it won't be beautiful." "I'm not afraid, sister. As long as I dance with you, I'll be as good or bad as I wish." She saw that his stubborn face seemed serious and couldn't continue, so she put down the blame and said, "It's not possible. You can invite someone else to go, Lear and Wan. Otherwise, Zhou and Aki. I still have 2 more Sundays to go, so I'll." Shiryu grabbed Wan Yin, who was planning to apply oil to her feet, and then showed a seductive arrogance, saying, "I don't choose anyone else. I'll just dance with you, sister. You can just follow me, this time, okay?" Luan repeatedly refused and wanted to break free from the sleeve he was pulling on. As she tugged, something flew out of her sleeve. Upon closer inspection, it was clearly the green snake. They both stopped. Luan Yin was the first to look towards the den of the Teng snake tribe, his gaze weaving back and forth among the snakes, and he wondered who would recognize this little snake. She secretly felt fortunate that she had already saved him 7 or 8 times in the past few days, and the rest was tricked into being a small snake to scare her as compensation. Amidst the swirling thoughts, Luan's heart had already staged over 100 scenes of saving lives, helping the wounded, and taking the lead. However, Shiryu noticed the unusually robust body of the snake and tentatively extended his hand, saying, "This is." The head of the Luan clan glanced at him with a gust of wind, and his aura sank. He shouted loudly, "Be careful, Shiryu." As he spoke, he pulled the 2 of them back and leaned back, using a backhand technique to hit the green snake. At the same time, a magnificent green light burst out from the green snake, colliding with the old clan leader's magic and emitting a roar. Bang! The old clan leader fell to the ground in response. "Grandpa! Patriarch Grandpa! Patriarch!" Yu and Luan immediately ran towards the old clan chief, and they supported his body on one side and the other. Luan was greatly shocked in his heart. The clan leader's grandfather was already the strongest in Woi magic. Just now, he saw that he had clearly used 10% of his strength, but it was difficult to match. She suddenly looked at the green snake across from her. The surrounding clan members surrounded several people, each extremely angry, transforming into a primitive form and rushing towards the green snake. But with just a flicker of green light, the green snakes fell to the ground one after another in circles. Yu sobbed and looked at the blood overflowing from the corner of his grandfather's mouth with heartache. Then he turned around and glared at the green snake with hatred. "I fought with you." The leader of the Luan clan grabbed Yu's arm and gestured to Luan Yin. She immediately lifted the leader's body, helped him stand straight, and listened to him say, "The gods have come from afar, not from our tribe. I wonder what's the point." Chapter 3. Heaven and man like Jade, like old friends come. You are listening at novelfull.audio. As soon as these words were spoken, it was like throwing a stone into the sea. Although the members of the tribe dared not rush forward again, they all whispered and boiled uncontrollably. Up. God. Is this snake a fairy? God is God, immortal is immortal. What kind of God is the upper God? Bah, what kind of God? Beat our clan leader, what kind of God do you care about him? How did he get in? It's been so many years, and I've seen an outsider for the first time. Isn't it true that even immortals cannot cross weak waters? Even immortals cannot hit people. Amidst various opinions, the green light suddenly flourished, and amidst the radiance, a dazzling man slowly stood up. A head of green silk gracefully hangs down, and the copper-green brocade robe is covered with dark golden imperial patterns. This is the first time Luan Yin has seen someone who can dress green in a deep, cool and noble way. I saw him as cold as an iceberg, but his momentum was extraordinary. His eyes were as heavy as dusk, and he was like two cold stars in the eternal silence of the night, calm and without waves. Yu stood up slowly on his side, took a step forward, and disappeared half of Luan Yin's body, questioning him, "Who are you?" The eyebrows that flew diagonally into his temples seemed to suddenly insert a cold arrow. His long eyelashes moved and he glanced at Yu, causing a ripple in the cold pond. Qingwan bird. The man's gaze flickered as he passed over the crowd one by one, before finally landing in the boundless wilderness. He paused and raised his hand to shoot a faint light into the distance. A vermilion manju sha hua sways and grows vigorously amidst the lush greenery. He gazed far and wide, his eyes as cold as the cold moon shimmering with a soft light, as if lost in a longing thought. All seasons are spring, grass and trees are endless, all kinds of seeds must be harvested, and the phoenix and phoenix sing harmoniously. This is the field of all fertile lands. As if unable to hear everyone's discussions, when he regained his senses, he turned his gaze to the old clan leader. His gaze remained calm as before, as the man spoke in a solemn tone that was almost pronounced, word by word. If the Luan bird clan had violated the heavenly rules 1,000 years ago, they would have been punished by heaven, demoted to demons, and the entire clan would have been destroyed. Unexpectedly, they fled to this legendary realm and hid in the fields of various fertile lands. Ha! Do you all know the sin of the demon clan? Luan's heart suddenly ignited an unnamed flame. This person had infiltrated the fertile field, causing her to waste her energy and obtain a white-eyed wolf. She also let him injure the clan chiefs and others, causing a commotion. When Yu Guanli was in a rage, she truly felt guilty. At this moment, as she looked at the man's towering demeanor, the more she thought about it, the more angry she became, and she couldn't recall any beautiful thoughts. She suddenly made a move, two types of fireworks intertwined and shot straight at him. The man just lightly brushed his sleeve and scattered Luan Yin's blow, while she was hit back and sprayed a large mouthful of crimson blood, falling to the ground. Sister. Yu ran to Wan Yin and squatted down in front of her, then anxiously moved behind her, conveying his meager strength to her. A slight moistening sensation surged through the meridians, although it was not of great use, it did alleviate the symptoms of Wan Yin. Qimen. It was like a deity falling into the mortal world, and the man's expression finally caught a hint of fireworks. With a whoosh sound, he stood in front of Wan Yin. Yu beside him stopped moving, and the old clan leader also looked guarded, staring at his every word and action. But after he arrived in front of Wan Yin, there was no sound. However, in a very short moment, there seemed to be a hint of sadness in his eyes, so fast that people thought they had developed an illusion. For a moment, he leaned down and lifted his thin lips, asking her, "Who are you?" When Yu asked, he asked him to give it to Wan Yin. She glanced at the clan chief and Yu, and couldn't help but think of his disregard and arrogance. With a smile on her lips, she blurted out, "Unforgettable, I am your father, the kind father who saved your life." The man struggled with his expression, his gaze seeming to see something through Wan Yin's eyebrows. As soon as she finished speaking, she saw him reach out his hand and instinctively resisted. The attacks of Yu and the clan leader both made him shake them off, but he just stopped his hand between her eyebrows, the blue waves flowing and the eyebrows furrowing. Wan felt no discomfort due to being shackled, and even felt a familiar force wandering through her meridians, without threat or repulsion. Like her original power. The blue flame, it gave birth to all things and nourished warmth. Sure, there is a sound coming from far to near. A firework shot between the two, and as soon as Wan opened his eyes, he saw that he was forced to take a few steps back. At the same time, he also lifted his shackles and saw the person coming. Auntie. Holy Auntie. When Yuan hurriedly rushed towards Wan Yin, and the crowd gathered to make way for her. She rushed to Wan Yin and after carefully examining her injuries, she breathed a sigh of relief and said, "Wan Yin, how do you feel? Is there anything else that's uncomfortable?" Wan shook his head and felt guilty, whispering, "Auntie, I'm sorry for causing trouble again. He was caught by me in the weak water, and I didn't know he was an outsider. He seems to be from the heavenly clan." When Yuan's sharp gaze fell on the old clan chief, who nodded at his aunt. When Yuan took a deep breath and interrupted Wan Yin's words, comforting her as before. "No problem, leave it to me." After speaking, she stood up and asked politely, "There are many running dogs of the heavenly clan. I wonder what your name is." This statement did not make the man angry at all. Instead, he looked at Wan Yin seriously, burning like a star, and said, "My name is Zhang." For a moment, Wan was stunned by the inexplicable warmth in his eyes and eyebrows. But when Yuan's expression struggled to trace back, and in just a moment, there was no result. She scrutinized his demeanor again, with a hint of hatred in her eyes. "Do you know Ji Xiuhui?" Zhang seemed to think carefully for a moment, and Qi Cheng replied, "I am not familiar with Jin Wu Tianfei." When Yuan has always been able to guess people's hearts. Seeing his expression not seeming to be fake, he sneered, TSK, after all these years, she's still a heavenly concubine. This is the happiest thing I've heard in thousands of years. Retribution. No one answered this. Yuan secretly admired his aunt's interpersonal communication and listened to her hesitation, saying, "Are you Haotian's son?" Zhang Heng's deep voice was like Jade. "No, it's not." After examining for a while, when Yuan finally let go of his persistence and said, "Well, he should be a small soldier in the heavenly realm. Although he has a magnificent demeanor, just a few thousand years have passed, and I don't expect many great figures to emerge. The immortals of the heavenly clan are indeed very capable of deceiving people. Look at their rich immortal aura, they are stronger than us demons. However, I never expected that after waiting for several years, they were actually members of the heavenly clan." Fu retorted to Zhang. The old clan chief suddenly had a frightened expression, and seeing Zhang's expression more alert than before, he said, "Holy Aunt, is he Grandpa Wen Yuanchong, the head of the clan, nodded confidently. Sure, you and the other looked at each other. Luan said in confusion, Auntie, what does this mean? Wen Yuan looked at her and pointed at Songheng, saying, you come with me. Wen Yuan led Luan Yin and Songheng into the conference hall. This is the place where the clan leader Suri and the saints, clan members, and others discuss the secrets, and the techniques are isolated, making it the most tightly sealed. Sure, you refused to leave and could only be stopped by his grandfather in the courtyard. Luan could only see him standing straight in front of the door after a quick glance before closing the door. The furnishings in the hall are simple, except for the extremely simple tables and chairs, with only one plaque hanging in the center, heavily colored, and with a round and vigorous pen, writing, carrying virtue and material. Luan stood in front of Wen Yuan, watching Songheng stare at these 4 words for a long time, his eyes slightly dim, his eyelashes slightly furrowed, as if the twinkling star was covered by clouds and mist. There was such a long silence in the hall. As she was about to bear it no longer, Wen Yuan sneered and mixed it with a voice that she didn't understand. People of the heavenly clan probably don't recognize these 4 words. Thick, virtuous, medium, and material. The upper and lower actions have the same effect. If the source of the Tao does not have virtues, it will definitely not be able to educate you to have virtue. Songheng turned his head, his eyes as deep as a deep pool, with ripples hidden in them. Wen Yuan sat upright and said, why did you come here? Searching for someone. Wen Yuan tightened all over and tried to remain calm, saying, who is it? White Tiger. Wen Yuan breathed a sigh and said, the White Tiger God is one of the few good gods who hates evil as if they were enemies. Then he said, I have something that I don't understand. Why can you fly across the weak water? As far as I know, in today's world, besides the 4 gods, Qinglong, Baihu, Zhuke, and Xuanwu, even the heavenly emperor cannot tolerate the 3,000 turbid qi of the weak water. Although you have advanced cultivation, you have no divine power fluctuations on your body, only an immortal body. I didn't hear Songheng's answer, obviously it was a question he didn't want to answer. After waiting for a long time, Wen Yuan didn't get angry and quickly said, it's okay if you don't answer. Anyway, it doesn't matter if you come. I'll make a different request. I want you to take her out of the fertile field and protect her to a place. Wen Yuan pushed Luan Yin, but the latter was unprepared and immediately inserted himself between the two. He turned his head and shouted, Auntie. Wen Yuan signaled for her to remain silent, and she opened her mouth, just to hear them continue. What if I shouldn't? Then you can only spend the rest of your life in this fertile field like us. Songheng finally seemed to face it head on, and a chill swept over him. Do you think I can't get out? Wen Yuan was not afraid and looked at him with a smile. You can try to explore the fields of the various fertile lands. Why do you think you can hide in the world? Even if the heavenly emperor comes, you can't even spy. Perhaps you have your own escape door and strong magic, but without my permission, you can never step out of this place. Songheng's face darkened, and he made a stern gesture. His fingertips were pale, and he grabbed Wen Yuan's neck and said, what if I kill you? Luan rushed forward and was blocked by various techniques, but he had no choice. Wen Yuan jumped out of her throat almost crazily and said, don't say you killed me. Even if you kill everyone in Wei and don't agree to my demands, I will never let you go. The peace and tranquility that have been stolen by Wei for thousands of years are what Wei has stolen. Anyway, I am already alone. If I had no hope, I would have been tired of living for so long. Luan was stunned, and her aunt's eyes were sore, causing her to fall into an abyss. She had never seen her look like this before. Her face can be either cool or indifferent, although occasionally gloomy, it has never appeared with such a resolute attitude. She had heard her describe her husband and children before, but Luan realized it later and tasted a bit unusual. She couldn't help but ponder what kind of upheaval made her aunt so paranoid and sad. Songheng seemed to have also been infected, looking at Wan Yin beside him and letting go of his hand. Can. When Yuan pursued with a commanding aura, I want you to swear to escort Wan Yin there, not to harm Wan Yin, not to cause harm to Wan Yin, and not to reveal the location of the fertile field to anyone after being sent. You cannot retaliate against the people of the fertile field by yourself or others. Songheng glanced at Wan Yin again and said, I don't know. When Yuan remained determined and said, I swear. Songheng placed his hand in the center of his eyebrows, and then threw a beam of light towards his head. As the light swirled down, the green and green light moved greatly, fainting golden waves around him. The contract between heaven and earth had been completed. When Yuan finally let go of all her strength and loosened up. At this moment, she looked at Songheng and said, You don't ask me, where are you going to send her? It's okay, heaven and earth, there's no place I can't step on. When Yuan rarely looked up at his eyebrows and eyes, unable to detect familiarity, but also pondered what level of magical power he had reached to be so determined. As Luan needed his care in the future, she just said calmly, You're quite confident. After 3 seconds of silence, when Yuan spoke up and said, To the north of the wilderness, rest with the mountains. Songheng's eyes tightened, his long legs took a step, and he walked towards Wan Yin on the side. Although Luan witnessed his aunt making a deal with him, she had only witnessed him causing a great uproar before, and she was also injured by him, which inevitably left her with lingering fear. At this moment, when I saw him walking, I couldn't help but feel a hint of fear. But she still had the courage to look at him. As far as he could see, he saw his eyes icy and his voice hoarse as he asked her, Who are you? This was his second time asking her, and unlike the first probing, there was a certain uncontrollable emotion in his eyes now, as if he had recognized something. Wan Yin couldn't help but feel confused. I am Wan Yin. Without hesitation, Songheng asked again, Who are your parents? Where are they? She lowered her eyes and whispered, They're gone. Songheng suddenly stood up hastily and said, Who are they? Do you know what their names are? As Songheng uttered these words, when Yuan seemed to wake up suddenly and pulled her behind him, saying to Songheng, You shouldn't ask too much. Songheng turned into a long halberd and pointed directly at Wen Yuan, saying, Who is she and what are her parents' names? The sudden change in front of her made Luan feel a bit stunned. She pondered Songheng's questioning in a hesitant manner and tried to search in her mind, but found nothing. Just as she was thinking about it again, in an instant, her soul seemed to be stripped away, and a pain spread, tearing her heart and lungs apart. Luan, feeling powerless all over, could only hold her head and say, I don't know, I don't know. When Yuan suddenly pushed away Songheng, turned around and hugged Luan Yin's body, familiar with the warm voice. Good Luan Yin, we don't want to think anymore, don't think anymore, it's okay, don't think too much, these are not urgent. Songheng was shocked by her sudden weakness and was at a loss. He wanted to touch it but didn't dare to do so. He lost his flamboyant aura and could only mutter repeatedly, I. Luan was on the verge of splitting due to a headache, and with Wen Yuan's patience, he gradually regained himself. For a long time, she hoarsely opened her mouth and said, Auntie, why can't I remember anything? I can't remember how my parents passed away, and I can't remember their faces. I can only remember some scenes one by one, and every time I focus on thinking, I tremble all over and feel excruciating pain. When Yuan's eyes were filled with water vapor, and she coaxed her affectionately, saying, Have you forgotten? As I said, when you reach adulthood, you will remember. But Auntie, I have a demon in my heart. When I practice, I always feel hindered. No matter how hard I try, I feel like I can't do it anymore. This day won't come. When Yuan firmly and gently held her hand and said, You will, you will. The person who stepped into the secret realm has arrived, and your mother told me that this is your chance, and it is also the mission of Woi. You will definitely achieve great success, and you will definitely achieve your wish. Mother. Yes, your mother. She is very powerful, she cannot hinder your own destiny, but she can definitely help you overcome your own destiny. From the moment someone steps into the secret realm, we should completely trust your mother. At this moment, one had only seen the expression on the faces of the clan members during the sacrificial ceremony, and it was this ordinary expression that gave her some courage. Her heart finally settled down, and Chong Wen-yuan gave a bright smile. Wen-yuan also calmed down and said to Cangheng in a deep voice without looking back, "You go outside and wait for us first." Chapter 4. Taking heaven and earth as a mirror, going to rest and rest. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Sensing that Cangheng was far away, Wen-yuan quickly moved to the rear corner, twisted open the 4 bottles among the many porcelain bottles, and the side walls slowly opened. One was stunned, not for any other reason, but shocked by her aunt's boldness and meticulousness. She was actually here, reaching an agreement with the powerful immortal outside. As she pondered what kind of mysterious place this would be, when Yuan led her into a secret room, which was everywhere. The one her aunt used to sneak into before. When Wan Yin took advantage of his relaxed technique and sneaked in, there was no difference. There was only a painting hanging inside, and a bed was placed. There was a table next to the bed, on which were some women's dowry items, as well as pens, inkstones, and copper coins. She suddenly lost interest. When Yuan led her to the painting, she couldn't help but say, "Auntie, I still can't see clearly." But this time, when Yuan shook his head and said to her, "Kneel down, kowtow 3 heads." Although she was puzzled, she acted according to her words. "Do you know why I made you kneel?" "I don't know." When Yuan chuckled angrily and said, "So you should kneel down." Wan Yin sincerely said, "Although I don't know the reason for doing this, my aunt must be doing it for my own good. Besides, the clan leader's grandfather said that this is a goddess above, who is not only a goddess, but also a goddess. I believe I have respected her and may have some insights, which will be very beneficial for cultivation. This is not a goddess above." She was confused and said, "Isn't it a goddess? So why did the clan chief grandfather say it's a goddess?" "Because he knows whose painting it belongs to." "Whose painting is this?" "This painting belongs to your mother." "My mother? Is my mother a goddess?" When Yuan won't answer. Wan Yin became interested and said, "Auntie, what exactly is painted on this? I can't see clearly either." "To be precise, none of us can see clearly, only you have the opportunity to see clearly." "Can't he see that person outside clearly?" "Humph, he definitely can't see it clearly." As if trying to stop such a topic, when Yuan pulled her up from the ground, took Wan Yin's hand, and looked into her eyes. "It will hurt a bit, endure it," he said before Wan Yin could react. She felt a tingling pain and lowered her head to see her aunt break open her finger. In the moment when blood spilled out, she grabbed her finger and burst a drop of blood into the painting. The blood droplets did not make the painting dirty, but instead hovered a millimeter in front of the painting. The pale yellow paper seemed to have been recognized and then swallowed. At the moment when the blood droplets seeped in, one felt the simple and earthy aura sweeping over him, like the vast and boundless fertile land, as well as the simple forgiveness of the tribe, one by one, mixed with the vitality and strength of the earth. A subtle and gentle force that embraces all things converges into her sea of consciousness, guiding her consciousness across the fertile land. She found that she could call out the name of each seed and distinguish the rustling expressions of every plant and tree. She saw the tribe chasing and laughing on the fertile field, and also saw the faces of the aunties praying under the reflection of the eternal flame, devout and warm. The tender flower stems trembled in the wind, and she smelled the fragrance of flowers and fruits floating in the air. She also heard the whispers of the grass, and even could see Cangheng and Shiyu confronting each other outside the yard. Wan was frightened back to his senses. When I opened my eyes, my aunt looked at me with a bright expression, while the painting on the wall was nowhere to be seen. When Yuan seemed to have already anticipated and said, "Check it out." She immersed her mind in the sea of consciousness and saw something like a grain of rice lying quietly there. When she opened her eyes again and looked at her aunt, she only saw her solemn expression and said, "The painting has no longer entered your sea of knowledge. When the time is ripe, you will open it. What I want to say is that this time you went to Qimen Mountain, there is another purpose." "What is it?" "You need to seek something called the Cause and Fate Mirror, which is the treasure of heaven and earth. It can gather your divine soul and is the key to restoring your memory and improving your cultivation." The Mirror of Fate. Yin finally ground the name. "Is it in the place where I want to go, rest with the mountains? I don't know where the Karma Mirror is, but it coexists with the four gods of creation and coexists with the heavenly way. The Shilha mountain you are going to is in the snowy wilderness of the north, where the Xuanwu ancestral god is located. The Qinglong belongs to the wood, which governs the growth and development of all things, the vermilion bird belongs to the fire, which dispels all evil, the white tiger belongs to the gold, which is brave and can suppress evil, and the Xuanwu belongs to the water, which is tough and mysterious. In my opinion, the ones who can understand the meaning of heaven the most are the descendants of the Xuanwu ancient god. They are skilled in their hearts and are well versed in divination and can cut off the great fortune of the world. But even if they can infer where such a precious treasure is, will they inform me?" "Yes." After pondering for a while, one hesitated and said, "Is it very dangerous to rest with the mountains?" When Yuan definitely said, "No, not only is it not dangerous, but once you get there, there will be no danger at all. Although I haven't been there, the world is vast. If there is a place that you can trust, it must be Zhou and Shan, and only Zhou and Shan can protect you." She looked at Wen Yuan and pursed her lips in silence. Wen Yuan understood and spoke softly, "More trustworthy than me." Yuan, unable to establish contact with them at this moment, could only speculate, are they very good people? Zhou and Shan fade out of the world. They may not be enthusiastic about people, but they will never harm them. However, for you, they will do their best. Just as Yin wanted to continue asking, a deafening sound came. She suddenly remembered Sangheng and Shiryu outside. Damn it! When Yin arrived, what caught his eye was the interweaving of indigo and blue in the courtyard, with stars shining everywhere. The flower branches on the ground are crooked, and most of the glazed pots are fragmented. Sangheng's figure remained unchanged, only using his arm and elbow to block it. Shiryu was pushed back step by step until he reached the corner of the wall, with a resounding sound that made people tremble with fear. Just as she was about to stop it, Shiryu was already powerless and fell backwards. She quickly stepped forward to catch Shiryu. Shiryu gritted his teeth and wanted to fight again. Turning his head, he saw that it was Yin. His eyes were immediately filled with tears, but he didn't fall or say a word. He just stood up and looked at the situation, intending to go again. She grabbed Shiryu and said, "Don't go, he's very impressive." He stopped and asked, "Sister, Grandpa said he wants to take you away. Is that true?" Wan remained silent for a while, but still answered, "Yes." He grabbed Yin's arm with his back hand and frantically begged, "Take me with you, okay?" She looked at him and remained silent for a long time. Shiryu grew up with her since childhood. Due to her aunt's guidance and the respect of the clan leader, she appeared to be dignified and composed in front of others, while he was stubborn and reckless. But he was like a fire in her routine, burning down the loneliness, unease, and melancholy hidden in her heart over the years. Whether he leads her crazy or she leads him recklessly, she knows that it all belongs to the indulgence of children like them who have no father, mother, or upbringing. Whenever oil lamps burn one by one in the wilderness and the fragrance of rice and millet rises, there are only the two of them, either leaning or sitting on broken wood, indulging in fun without restraint. She knew that he, like her, envied the children who were scolded by their elders but cried profusely, only she knew that all his rebellions were outlets for venting, and every time the lights of the house were lit up, it was the beginning of a long and lonely night for the two of them. If it weren't for him, Ilwan's oppressive personality might have nurtured a demon at an early age, so having him in her youth was something she was grateful for. Sure, you understood this silence, so when a tear was about to fall and finally fell, he suddenly reached out and brushed it away, then lifted his foot and walked away. Sure you. She called out to him. He stopped. Yin took off the Luan feather flowing from his hair, broke his hand, and placed it in the palm of his hand. Sure, you once said that the only flowing feather of the Luan bird family is this one, and the feather between the tail of the Qingluan young master is the most beautiful. She knew what he was waiting for, maybe staying, maybe something else, but she could only say dryly, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for my promise to be your companion in the wilderness, and for my reckless act of letting you walk alone in the dark night. Moonlight fell on the tree and floated up his face. Climbing up, Sure Yu's silhouette was like 1,000 mountains in evening snow, returning to silence. He had a pale complexion and a slight movement in his Adam's apple, as if he were a lonely and helpless young beast, trembling and caressing his flowing feathers. The stumbling figure that walked away was eventually swallowed up by the night, just like the grass and the waves, making it difficult to achieve a clear dream. Sure Yu left without looking at Yin again, nor saying a word to her. Luan vaguely sensed that his path ahead was covered with thorns. Her parents chose to keep her in the wilderness, but she wanted eternal peace in the fertile fields. I give you the peace my parents gave me, and I hope you can stay here for me and live well. Not long after, a shadow fell on Yin's head and onto the empty space in front of him. She looked up and saw Zhang staring at her with a faint worry on his face. Luan suppressed his emotions and grinned at him generously, saying, You're numb, give me a pull. Zhang didn't hesitate and extended his arm to her. Thank you. She stood up with his help, then turned around and walked out. He grabbed Yin and said, Where are you going? Luan blinked in confusion and said, Take a night off and set off tomorrow morning. In the morning, the wilderness was shrouded in mist, and the sunlight filtered through the mist, weakly scattering onto the earth. The freshness of the soil penetrated Yin's nostrils, and she took another deep breath. Zhang stood on the side. She slept soundly all night last night and didn't ask him where he rested last night. Behind her is the weak water, in front of her is the ant and clan chief, and in the distance are the fertile field crowd who want to come and see her off but dare not approach the weak water. There is no Sure Yu. Luan, knowing that he had watched the scenery for half a day, couldn't wait or linger any longer. He waved his hand and shouted, Everyone go back, I will miss you. Her eyesight was excellent, and when she looked at them, she saw the expressions of her former companions who had played with her reluctant to part. Li Erjuan's tears flowed incessantly, and the people she had saved sincerely prayed, while the aunties were kind, compassionate, and paying attention. Some of them were shouting something at her, but they couldn't hear clearly. She calmed down and asked, Auntie, what should I do now? Do you remember recognizing things in the sea? Luan nodded. Now, move your mind and take it out. She closed her eyes, reached out her hand, felt it with all her might, searched for the sea of consciousness, and then turned around and opened her eyes. The grain of rice lay in her palm. Zumajizi. Zhang leaned in at some point, and for the first time, Yin saw such a youthful expression on his displeased face. She couldn't help but wonder, what is summer mustard? Zhang said, No wonder, I see. Luan muttered in frustration, What would happen if you said one more sentence? Will it be like thunder and lightning strike from the sky? When Yuan took over the conversation and said, Let me talk about it. Sumeru mustard seed is an intangible treasure of Western Buddhism. According to legend, Sumeru mustard seed is a transformation of chaos, just like the true element of a cultivator, big enough to accommodate thousands of worlds, small enough to enter the dust. At this moment, you can see it as a grain of rice, and it can also transform into other shapes. However, due to various opportunities, it has now appeared in your sea of consciousness and become like this. Legend has it that in ancient times, the gods of the four directions led their immortals and humans to fight against demons. This instant mustard was the magical weapon they used to hide and win in battles. After the great victory in the Battle of Honghuang, the four gods bestowed this treasure to the Buddha ancestors in the Western immortal realm, saying that it was in line with their great world path and could help them practice. Isn't that why I can hide here when I encounter some danger? No way, the conditions for opening Sumeru Kazuko are very strict. If you don't check for a moment, you may be trapped forever. Moreover, with your current magical power, you cannot achieve self-enlightenment unless one of the four gods personally arrives. These four gods are so powerful. They can command and lead immortals, people, and even drive these treasures. Yes, although people in the immortal world are called immortals by mortals, from beginning to end, only the four gods are the true gods in this vast world. They are the spirits nurtured by the clear energy when heaven and earth first opened. Remember, in this world, the power of immortals, demons is nothing to fear, only the four gods are the creators of the source of all things. No one's power can surpass them, and if there is anything that can eliminate them, it is only themselves. Are they still in the world? Foolish child, although the four gods are gods, they can also fall. However, before falling, they will leave descendants to ensure that their divine power is passed down from generation to generation. If there is no extraordinary event, they will still live for a long time. At this point, she paused for a moment, and Luan looked at her in confusion, only listening to her continue, but the gods are only immortal. Their physical bodies may disappear, but for tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of years, perhaps they will be reborn. The gods will protect this world in their own way. The clan chief looked at Luan with a burning gaze, while Cangheng beside her stared at Wen Yuan thoughtfully. Alright, now you pull him out of this weak water. At the same time, gather your thoughts and let the mustard seed let the two of you settle down and go to a place outside the weak water. Luan, after bowing to the clan leader, hugged Wen Yuan and said, Auntie, thank you. I will come back to pick you up and go out. Wen Yuan's eyes turned red, and the old clan leader choked up in silence. She no longer stayed, standing shoulder to shoulder with Cangheng, walking step by step towards the weak water. Hey, what if I don't concentrate well and don't get any mustard seeds, and then drown first? I will protect you. I heard that the weak water is the embodiment of the 3,000 greed of the emperors in the human world. It is extremely evil and penetrating everywhere, and extremely sharp. Although I can play in the water, I am still a bit afraid at this moment. Fearless, I will protect you. Standing at the edge, she looked at him, took his hand, smiled at him, focused, and jumped into the flow of greed. The rolling dust swept towards the two of them, and they had already emerged, fearless of the world. Just as the primordial spirit entered, one suddenly felt a surge of warmth all over her body. For a moment, she seemed to see the warm sun rising from the clouds, shining on her body. And as she swept across the sky, the sound of the wind made a hunting sound, and the immortal tree withered inch by inch. Amidst the howling, there seemed to be someone mixed in, shouting her name loudly. Luan wanted to listen again, but his consciousness could no longer control itself and gradually fell into a dark and boundless state. Chapter 5. Call sign Ghost Domain. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The Western Wilderness Desert. The strong wind swept up the golden sand, and several hills transformed under its kneading, like towering mountains or long floating clouds. Mang and yellow sand, heavy shadows of the sun. The desert is isolated and desolate, with few people. In the swaying sand shadows, a sound suddenly passed by, startling a flock of geese. Luan Yin chased Cangheng and asked, You haven't said it yet. What exactly did you mean by that just now? Previously, the two of them woke up in the Ruoxu frozen spring. When Luan woke up, he saw Cangheng staring blankly at the endless mountains in the distant clouds and mist. She asked Cangheng, What are you looking at? But he murmured to himself, between Kunlun Mountain and the weak water abyss, there shouldn't be any fertile fields, it shouldn't be here. When it came to the fertile land, one felt a surge of vigilance in her heart. Just as she wanted to explain it to him, she suddenly felt the strong wind carrying yellow sand approaching her ears. Zhang suddenly shook and shattered a large red bird hanging above her head, resembling a bee and a mandarin duck. This is Qimen, a demon bird from Kunlun Mountain, highly poisonous. Be careful. Having never seen anything with his own eyes, one was momentarily fascinated by the strange behavior of this big bird and couldn't help but ask him, where is Kunlun Mountain? Kunlun Mountain is the fiefdom of the Empress Dowager of the Heavenly Court after their marriage. However, today the Heavenly Emperor only has one concubine and has not yet established a queen, so Kunlun Mountain is idle and temporarily under the jurisdiction of the West Wilderness God, White Tiger. I remember you said before that you were looking for the White Tiger, but you found it. No. Is it he who doesn't see you? No, he's missing. Seeing Luan's puzzled expression, Zhang Hengbai patiently said while in the fertile field, the place we are currently in should be the demon realm. The White Tiger is skilled in fighting and killing, and its strength is so strong that it can defeat the demon tribe. Therefore, all previous White Tigers have guarded the western wilderness. Previously, the ancient ferocious beast, the White Tiger, suddenly erupted in the western wilderness, causing fluctuations in the heavenly realm. He ordered me to explore. After I killed it, I found that the demon realm was in chaos, and the god White Tiger, who was supposed to guard the demon realm, disappeared. So how did you fall into the weak water? Recalling again, he didn't want to answer much before and added, if it involves confidentiality, it's okay. Zhang explained with some explanation, no, it's okay. Earlier, when I was surrendering the enemy, I found that it was very different from usual, with terrifying power compared to the past. I had to try to catch and kill it, but also suffered serious injuries. When I approached to check, I unexpectedly discovered the hidden traces of the demon. I was ambushed by a demon and forced into a weak water. I accidentally fell and woke up in a coma. I met you, I see, then when you saw us, you thought we were demons' accomplices. He looked a bit unnatural and said, yes, I saw that your position was hidden and the timing of your appearance was very. Fortunately, it didn't cause a big mistake. So what's going on with this demon? Upon hearing this, Zhang became solemn and worried, and raised his eyebrows. After the Great War, the underworld surrendered to the heavenly realm and became a reincarnated ghost realm. The underworld. The demon tribe suffered heavy casualties and fled everywhere, while the demon was completely eradicated. Now that thousands of years have passed, the demon has reappeared in the world, and I don't know what this means. Is it very strong? Yes, the demon is the foremost evil among the three evil spirits. In ancient times, the reason why the four gods worked together to eliminate it was because the demon is different from the other two evils. In the six realms, whether it is corrected or evil, it requires its method, but the demon does not need to follow this path. Regardless of the path, it will generate 7 emotions and 6 desires, and becoming an immortal is not easy, but becoming a demon is only in a moment of thought. Therefore, if the demon quietly revives, it will be a disaster in the world. Didn't the four gods once join forces to destroy them? If we ask the four gods to take action, wouldn't it be resolved? Zhang's face was complex. He glanced at her and lowered his eyelids, saying, the four gods have all fallen. Luan Yin was taken aback and said, but didn't Auntie say they would have descendants? The current White Tiger God is the legitimate descendant of the White Tiger ancestor God, but his experience is still shallow and he has not yet activated his talent for guardianship. The Xuanwu faction passed away in indifference, but it is said that the previous Xuanwu God accidentally fell, with dull blood vessels under his knees and insufficient qualifications. The Vermilion Bird God and the Green Dragon God. They were once partners and had blood vessels, but their families were all harmed by monsters. At this point, Yin saw a sharp killing intent in Zhang Heng's gaze. She tugged at his sleeve and said, "What's wrong with you?" As ice and snow melted, Zhang Heng's cold and stern face softened and said, "Nothing happened, it's all over." Yin also became worried and sighed, "So to put it this way, the world is going to be in chaos." Zhang Heng's eyes lit up with a warm light, promising her, "It's okay, I'll protect you." He had said this before when he was swimming in a weak water, but at this moment, Wan couldn't help feeling a bit dazed as he looked at his clear eyes, like a rainbow after rain, staining the hot desert with a hint of coolness. "Did you know me before?" "I'm not sure, but I think you're her." "You don't know what she looks like. She separated from me when she was very young." "How do you know it's me?" "Feeling. Just based on feelings. And the breath, and your blue flame. Auntie did say that only I know how to be green flame. But it's not guaranteed either, after all, Auntie hasn't been out of the fertile land for a long time. Only she can shine in this world." Immediately, Zhang Heng didn't know what was on his mind and continued, "I didn't know about her before. Your aunt, she's good or bad, so in the fertile fields, I'm mostly on guard against her. My aunt is a good person, and I have been raised by her since I was young." Upon hearing this, Zhang Heng looked worried and pondered, "Have you been in a fertile field since you were young?" Wan shook his head in confusion and said, "I can't remember clearly, but when I was a child, I should have been there. Although it was chaotic at that time, I still remember it. I remember loving to play wildly, running outside all day, and having difficulty improving my cultivation. When I came back, I was driven by my aunt to practice." Zhang Heng's breath suddenly sank, he stood alone in the wind, his lonely figure moving forward alone, echoing several lonely poplar trees in the distance. "It doesn't matter, I'll send you to Xiu and Shan first." Wan guessed that he was disappointed, but she also refused to comfort him. If she is not his acquaintance, then she does not have the talent to be a substitute for others. If two words are too close, it will only make it difficult for each other in the end. She has experienced the bitterness of giving hope and disappointment, let alone being independent from a young age, hidden in the wilderness, and now seeking shelter elsewhere. She really has no leisure to take care of others' emotions. Wan stood up, the sun turning yellow, and the yellow soil casting sand, which reminded her of the previous topic. She disregarded past grievances and asked Zhang Heng, "Why shouldn't there be a fertile field between Kunlun Mountain and the weak water abyss?" But Zhang Heng remained indifferent as before, unwilling to say much. This is for her sudden loss of blessings from her old friend. Wan suddenly felt injustice. The beetle is indeed cold and thin. Even if she wasn't an old friend, she saved his life. It's just a contractual relationship, as long as you can protect her along the way, it's just like meeting by chance and not owing each other. She didn't ask any more questions and, facing the red sun, led the way deep into the desert hinterland. The heat wave was raging, rolling on the desert, and the two of them looked up to see the scorching sun. Wan, covered in dust and dust, struggled to walk in the endless yellow sand. She couldn't help but feel a dark aura, as the wind and sand in this demon realm were raging, making it impossible for them to control their flying skills. Although she carries yang fire and is not afraid of heat, she has also suffered from the wind and sand, her lips are cracked, and she is constantly restless. Wan couldn't help but mutter, "If I had known this earlier, would have used more spring water in Roa Su Quan. At this moment, I really miss the fertile land of Li Quan, cold and sweet, refreshing and refreshing. I don't know how long I've been walking in the desert, but at the intersection of the horizon, I finally catch a glimpse of green. It's an oasis." Wan ran forward with joy and joy. She was about to take a sip of water and wiped her face with the lake water. In the midst of the overgrown weeds, a dark brown rock stood faintly, which caught her attention. At this moment, she couldn't care much and shouted to Zhang Heng, "Come and see." Zhang Heng was summoned by her and jumped to her side. She pointed to the barren grassland ahead, and Songheng cleared the weeds. At a glance, the handwriting on the rocks was clearly visible. Devil's Realm. One tasted these 3 words with a rhythmic rhythm and then asked inexplicably, "Isn't this the demon realm? Is it the underworld?" Songheng's face was solemn as he said, "The Devil's Realm is the demon realm. This devil is not the ghost of the underworld, but the virtual finger of its demonic level. We have now entered the hinterland where demonic power converges. This is the most pure and terrifying source of demonic power. It sounds quite dangerous. Shall we take a different route? Entering the vicinity of the Devil's Realm, our direction has been completely lost. No matter how we walk now, we cannot find the right path. It seems that the previous sandstorm was deliberately disrupted by demons. No wonder." Wan Yin looked at him with a hopeful expression, like a shooting star passing through his eyes. "I'm not afraid, I know your magical power is profound. Do you remember saying, you can go anywhere from heaven to earth? I was only 7 points injured." Wan was shocked and suddenly remembered that it was indeed the case. Before he could cure him, he threw him out. She felt remorseful and conflicted in her heart, and then heard Songheng casually say, "However, it's okay to protect you. Let's go." Luan, due to a splash of water, quickly followed behind him, following step by step and not daring to leave. She was afraid that she might be swallowed by some monster if she didn't pay attention, so she helped it cultivate. Just as Luan sighed in his heart, his life was obedient, he saw Songheng's back abruptly stop. It was too late to dodge, and she used to force herself and slammed into his body. The upright spine of a man is like the square stone that Wan Yin usually cultivates, both sharp and hard. A piercing pain surged in her heart, and her nose was sore and tears were streaming down her face. She was about to burst out and curse, "You." Songheng turned to his side, and Luan saw through the remaining light. In front of him, the boundless yellow sand was filled with walking bones. Chapter 6. Qimen Dunjia. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The word she wanted to curse swallowed, and Luan Yin covered her nose and stared ahead, with bones neatly arranged and inserted into the sand. "Is everything okay?" Songheng said with concern. She waved her hand, slowed down for a while, pinched the tip of her nose, and hesitantly said, This is the bone demon formation." Luan nodded and tried to persuade himself, "These skeletons are all very small, maybe each one is scattered a lot, and spreading them out makes them look scary. Each one is very complete. They are all childish. Losing all conscience. The demon race is indeed extremely vicious." The sky darkened at some point, and the yellow sand sharpened on the rocks of the Gobi, emitting a mournful ghost cry. The desert, under the blood-like solitary sun, is highlighted with blood yellow and eerie. The vast desert was filled with roaring wind, sweeping dust and smoke into the sky. Luan suddenly felt lost in front of him, lowered his head, but felt the wind and sand calm. Rubbing his eyes, Songheng was blocking her in front. The sand was rough, hitting him on the body, rubbing against his neck, and unconsciously leaving fine marks. Without waiting for her to speak, a fierce buzzing echoed from afar. Looking up at the sky, a group of majestic Qinyuan birds were rushing towards them, densely packed and rolling across the sky and ground. "Block it." At the moment when Songheng made a sound, Wan Yin silently emitted a flame of crimson and blue. The two handed it over from behind, with Songheng in front, blocking most of the poisonous bird flock. She was in the back, burning the small branch that had escaped death and came from the front. Black and poisonous birds, boundless and boundless. Wan Yin spread the green flames to the maximum, with a central red edge and a green edge, pushing them towards the rear and then turning towards the sky. Songheng is still decent, but her magical cultivation is still shallow. As time flies, one gradually feels exhausted. Just as she had a wave of luck, she began to slack off. A cluster of poisonous birds crawled through the corner and charged towards her. It was too late to raise their hand again. One gritted his teeth and couldn't help but think of the Qinyuan toxicity that Songheng had just talked about. Stinging wood withers and stinging beasts die. She felt sad in her heart. She died before her graduation and was poisoned to death as soon as she left her home. What kind of luck was it? A green light flashed, and when Luan was lost in thought, she saw this cluster of poisonous birds flapping their huge wings 3 inches away from her eyebrows, unable to move forward. She turned her head to look at Songheng, and saw that he was still holding one hand against the front, while the other hand pushed out the green light, as if holding a thick rope, holding Qinyuan back and making it difficult to move. Songheng's forehead was covered with thin beads of sweat, reminding her, "Come back. Gather your energy." Luan's heart and mind trembled, and he immediately set fire to the waterfall, raising his hand and exerting force. Looking back, leaning against Songheng, she quickly said, "Songheng, I don't think it's possible. They are so endless, how long will we have to fight? Besides, if we persist, we may all have exhausted our mana." Songheng also had this intention. As he cast his spell, he struggled to gaze and observe the bones on the ground, saying, "The way to break the situation is here." Luan Yin also looked at the group of bones, with different shapes, some fragmented, some intact, looking different and similar everywhere. She said with regret, "How should we find it?" After pondering for a moment, Songheng suddenly realized, "I didn't expect the pure power of the demon clan to gather energy through the mysterious array. No wonder the demon clan can be powerful here. Relying solely on the barbaric power of the white tiger can only suppress it for a while, but it can never be broken." Luan felt anxious as he continued to spread flames and said, "Do you understand the Dharma formation? The world's magic formation, where yin and yang embrace each other, cannot be separated from the Qimen Dunjia. The ominous gate is dead, injured, and startled. The auspicious gate is open, alive, and resting. As long as we can find the inner gate, we can definitely leave the auspicious gate." What are the characteristics of students? Qimen belongs to the earth, Jen is located in the southwest. She was in the southwest, amidst a pile of skeletons, looking at different things. She was dazzled when suddenly a flower appeared in front of her. Upon closer inspection, she noticed something unusual. Look, there is a curled-up posture, corresponding to the 7 acupoints of the Beidou, with black energy. "I'll hold on, you unload your strength, attack." Luan raised his hand due to his luck and the fireworks attacked the skeleton. Boom! In an instant, Qinyuan-kun disappeared, and the skeleton hit by her red-blue flame ball instantly turned into powder. Luan suddenly collapsed due to exhaustion. Luan Yin. Songheng quickly turned around and swept over her body. But due to their previous excessive transportation capacity, with a loud bang, the two of them fell to the ground together. The numbness of the spell had not yet dissipated, and they couldn't feel any pain at the moment. Their hearts were only filled with the joy of surviving the disaster. Luan sighed as he rubbed his arm and said, "I'm exhausted. I've exhausted all my mana, but it can be considered broken." However, just as she uttered this sentence, Songheng suddenly froze. He looked towards the skeletal land just now, and the quicksand skeletal land did not disappear. Except for the one that was broken by Luan Yin earlier, everything else is fine and fully embedded there. Luan, feeling blessed to the soul, looked down at him with a shudder and asked, "What? What's going on?" Songheng gave a bitter smile and said, "I seem to have made a fatal mistake." Luan was about to ask him when suddenly yellow sand filled the sky, and the bones that had just been embedded on the ground suddenly began to bleed uncontrollably. One by one, they climbed up from the yellow sand, slowly coalesced, and condensed into dozens of towering giant bones. When the demon horn was even more prosperous, Luan sighed as he listened to Songheng beside him, "I forgot to remind you, I only used the green flame. There is healing in your body, it belongs to wood. But your destiny is fire. Is there any connection here? Wood conquers the earth, while fire generates the earth. Your own flame nourishes the earth. If the auspicious door is suppressed, it will become a dew door, and the auspicious door will be hidden. The auspicious door. Hidden. As soon as the words fell, dozens of huge child bones rushed towards them impatiently. They were strong in the wind, unable to dodge, and Luan Yin's shoulder was scratched, emitting a curling black aura. Luan Yin. Zhang Heng exerted all his strength to break down the huge body that had scratched her. Not long after, he saw the huge body powder self-assembling, and in the blink of an eye, it turned back into its original form. Zhang Heng protected Luan Yin and retreated backwards. They attacked the bones while paying attention to their weaknesses. At the same time, we have to guard against them hurting ourselves. In an instant, both of them were left with bloodstains on their bodies. Black energy had spread all over Luan Yin's body, and she couldn't hold on, so she poured into the quicksand. Lying in the quicksand, she looked up at Zhang Heng and saw his straight body, like a tall jade tree, supporting her with peace amidst the chaos. He extended the green circle to its fullest, protecting her in groups. But he himself, on the other hand, was squeezing his elbows everywhere. Soon, multiple wounds turned black and blood flowed incessantly. Luan opened her mouth and burst into tears. Zhang Heng caught a glimpse of her crying and couldn't help but take a breath. The skeletal giant aimed at the gap and rushed in, along with Luan Yin, who was also hit by black energy. Zhang Heng's gaze trembled, as if venting his anger, he let go of the black air. His cold feathered eyelashes raised a deep determination. He looked into her eyes and threw a devastating blow. Luan, feeling uneasy, shouted, "Zhang Heng, what are you doing?" Amidst the hustle and bustle of bones, he suddenly spoke softly, like blowing away a cloud that covered the sun. "This time, I won't lose you again." Chapter 7. Skeleton Storm. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Suddenly, there was a great change in heaven and earth, with raging sand and thunder and lightning. Under the flying green silk of Zhang Heng, a body of dragon scales appeared faintly. Behind Xiao Ran and loneliness, there was a majestic expression that no one dared to look at when they first met him. A third eye appeared in the center of his eyebrows, with the eyelids slightly closed. The night came when he closed his eyes, and he blinked until dawn. Luan suddenly remembered that his aunt had said that dragons were inherently lustful, and among the four ancient gods, the Qinglong ancient god had the most prosperous reproduction. There are numerous branches under it, and later on, in addition to the main divine lineage of the Qinglong, there is a 5-clawed golden dragon, now known as the current heavenly emperor. There are also Jiaolong, Sanlong, Qiulong, and so on, with fierce combat power. One of them is called Zhulong, formerly known as Zhuin. Red throughout, regarded as day, closed as night, breathing into the wind, able to summon thunderstorms, and has been a trusted minister of the green dragon since ancient times. But they don't like to socialize with people, have weak reproduction, and are also belligerent, afraid of disappearing. She looked up at Zhang Heng. No, it was still different. Zhang Heng's whole body was blue and white, with only the center of his eyebrows. His eyes were red, and it didn't seem like a candle-in pulse. Luan was confused because of this. Just as she was lost and fearful, an equally majestic demonic aura washed away, and a sinister laughter rang out in Jie's voice. "Finally forced you to take action. Long time no see, Zhang Heng, god of war." Zhang Heng remained calm and composed, while Baowan stood aside and revealed his life's magic weapon. The broken dragon halberd. He circled her in a circle and said to her, "Don't come out." After finishing everything, he finally glanced at the skeleton, holding a cold blade in his hand and lightly lifting his lips like a sword. 28 young children, point the blood to transform the skeleton. I should have thought it was you, Gu Hua. Ahead, the solitary smoke rose straight up, and a purple demonic aura condensed into a solid entity. A colorful yet dark 9-headed bird demon appeared among the skeletal giant children. She transformed into a woman, as powerful as a general, but had a pair of narrow and long eyes, which reduced her killing power by a few points. It seems that the god of war is also like me, thinking about each other. Yes, my husband was killed by you, and my son died because of you. For over 2,000 years, every day and night in your heavenly realm, you may not have slept peacefully. Xing Tian rebelled against the heavenly court, and your child died because of you. How could I feel uneasy? Damn it. The position of the leader of these 6 realms is already occupied by the capable. When Xingtian was an immortal, his magical power was equivalent to that of a dog thief. If it weren't for your horizontal thrust and Haotian's talent alone, how could I have firmly established the throne? How could I, with 1 corpse and 2 lives, be forced to borrow a bone demon to return my life? For so long, I have been searching for children, practicing forbidden techniques, and setting up formations using the mysterious method taught by Xingtian. It has been 2,000 years, and I have been waiting for you to enter the demon realm and come here for 2,000 years. I know you hate the demon race and have been killing all directions in the demon world. We waited and waited, but I didn't expect you to fall into my hands now. Can the white tiger be captured by you? Not bad. You killed him. Oh, why should I commit suicide myself? As long as I trap him with a formation, there will be demons coming one after another to beat his tendons and peel his skin. The obsession is so vain. Stop it, Gu Hua. How can you talk about obsession? You have no right to say this to me. The heavenly way is unfair, forcing wise people. Your majestic god of war is not just Haotian's minions, that's all. There is also White Tiger. They have suppressed the demon realm throughout history, claiming that the 6 realms are the strongest, and the hardest. We insist on gradually melting his body, quenching his bones, and refining his divine body into a container. God of war, you have come just right. A white tiger is not enough. Let me take a look at your strength at the top of the righteous path. Suddenly, the wind and clouds changed, huge waves rolled, and the sky overturned like a giant rock towards the earth, pressing down on Wan Yin and unable to breathe. With a blink of an eye, Zhang Heng carried his long halberd straight up to the clouds and engaged in a battle with the giant children. At dusk, the clouds and ink intertwined with the green and black. Wan couldn't see his movements clearly, so he could only pass by frequently. In the group of bones, there were remnants of Zhang Heng's swift and lightning. His long halberd pierced through the body of the giant skeleton, splitting and shattering, without any attachment, and went straight towards Gu Hua. Gu Hua showed a gloomy and compassionate smile, clearly fearless. At this moment, he smiled at his figure, admiring him as fast as the wind, deceiving himself. She waved her hands in the air and calmly recited a few spells in her mouth. Subsequently, the slow movement of the giant skeleton suddenly changed, becoming both swift and agile. Zhang Heng was blocked and could not capture Gu Hua without advance. He could only be forced to turn around and confront the rapidly converging skeleton soldiers. He repeatedly turned his long halberd and thrust it forcefully towards the skeleton. One kept hearing the sound of the long halberd like it had penetrated flesh and blood, and the sharp edge tearing and reuniting. The wind blew through his disheveled hair, his robe was stained with dust, his chest gradually soaked, and blood stains gathered on his body, slowly condensing into a dark red. His pale face was illuminated by the blood moon, and from an unknown moment on, his lips were covered in blood, and his collar was also. Based on Wan Yin's speculation, he had not yet fully understood his inner self, and under immense pressure, he would appear even more fragmented than his exterior. Wan's eyes were wet, but he tightly covered his mouth with his hands, afraid of making a sound and distracting him. Her heart was filled with worries and her mind was filled with self-blame for not curing him. She had never had a moment before when she hated herself so much, sitting in the mirror and not striving for progress. She stared at the skeletal giant fighting against Zhang Heng, feeling uneasy and saying, "What should I do? Zhang Heng looks very dangerous. I should think about how to save him, how to get out of trouble." In the blink of an eye, Zhang was overwhelmed and his defeat gradually became apparent. She looked at Gu Hua, who knew that his strength was strong, but he didn't worry at all. Obviously, he came prepared and relied on him. These bones, yes, these bones are the foundation of her endless demonic power. As long as you crack them, you can cut off the formation and the source of her power. Luan Yin suddenly lowered her head and stared at the skeleton formation in front of her, recalling quickly in her mind, repeating every word Zhang said to her over and over again. The world's magic formation, where yin and yang embrace each other, cannot do without the Qimen Dunjia. The ominous gate is dead, injured, and startled, while the auspicious gate is open, alive, and resting. As long as we can find the auspicious gate within the bureau, we can definitely go out. If Qimen is defeated by Keiji, then Qimen will become Dumen. Your original destiny is fire. Jin. In a daze, a dull and heavy headache struck. The faces of Ant and Zhang were intertwined, and when they were superimposed, they seemed to create new faces, blurring up. Some scenes carved into the bone marrow flashed by and overflowed. Mother, my uncle said you have great talent and a good understanding of the ways of the underworld. What is the way of the underworld? The Tao of the Xian Men is one of the methods practiced by cultivators in the human world. Why do people ascend to immortality based on this? The Tao within it is not untraceable. It relies on yin and yang, deduces the 5 elements and 8 trigrams, and measures the overall fortune of the world. What is the great fortune of the world? Tai Chi gives birth to 2 2 gives birth to 4 Xiang, and 4 Xiang gives birth to the 8 trigrams. Tai Chi is the heavenly way, and 2 is yin and yang. The 4 Xiang give rise to the 4 divine elements, which are derived from the heavenly way and must follow the laws of the heavenly way to move all living beings. Qian is the sky, Kun is the earth, Sun is the wind, Zhen is the thunder, Kanshui is separated from fire, Zhenshan is mixed with Zhe. Your original destiny is fire, fire can overcome gold, but water can overcome. What else is the use of the 5 elements and 8 trigrams? It is also possible to predict things. If anything is achieved, it is necessary to have favorable weather and land conditions, with the help of people and gods. There are 8 gates between people and gods, including the Du Gate, which is the gate of medium and evil. The Du Gate, also known as the Gambling Gate, is known as a gambling game. As long as the gambling is successful, one can escape. How can we win the bet? Qimen Dunjia also has 8 gods, which are like divine assistants. Du-men is very similar to the Teng Shishin Jun among the 8 gods. The Teng Snake Lord is vain, cunning and deceitful, causing illusion. If you want to control it, you need to first attack its ear acupoints, making it enchanted, attack its heart, slow its movement, and finally directly strike the heavenly spirit to reveal the value symbol. If there is a critical talisman, all evil will dissipate, and the world will be at peace. Burning along the blood, straight towards the top of the skull. Luan struggled to tear and trembled as she climbed up from the quicksand. She used her magic and shouted into the air, Zhang, first attack its ear hole, then attack its heart, and finally break through its heavenly spirit. Chapter 8. Not like the human world. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Zhang's silhouette paused for a moment, without hesitation, and immediately poked towards the direction she had said, using retreat as advance and turning defense into attack. After a few rounds of lifting the hand, the phantom took off and reached the ear acupoint, causing the giant skeleton to slow down, to the heart, stagnant, finally, attack its heavenly spirit. Fall to the ground with a loud bang. Skeletons turn into powder and seep into the flowing sand. No aggregation. Useful. Zhang immediately followed suit and attacked the giant remains one by one. Gu Hua suddenly lost her composure and accelerated the spell in her mouth. The speed of the giant skeleton increased again and again, but this time Zhang was unstoppable, and she seemed to be invincible. On this side, Wan Yin's gaze searched through the chaotic shadows. Value symbol, where is the value symbol? Suddenly, she noticed that among the giant skeletons hidden in front of Zhang, the last one. And also the first one counted from her. Was the first one slow and unresponsive, with a natural form that is out of place with other styles, and more like a human. The value symbol is a general, and the value symbol falling into the palace is the place where the master hides. He is the method of breaking the door. At the moment when he understood the key, one didn't have time to think much and immediately flew up. Songheng is too far away, if you want to come, you will be obstructed. She is very close, which makes it convenient for her to act. Ear acupoints, heart, heavenly spirit. She silently recited these positions in her heart, suppressing the excruciating pain, lifting her feet off the ground and into the air, stabilizing her figure. And just as she reached above, facing the value symbol, it seemed to have developed spirituality and felt a huge crisis, retreating backwards. Fearing of change, one dared not wait much and raised his hand with fireworks, attacking it one by one. As she landed her final blow, the black clouds dissipated, the bones shimmered with powder, and the demonic aura that filled the air dissipated into nothingness. The huge stone pressing against Wan Yin's heart moved with a thud. She looked up at the clear and bright sky, with countless rays of light. Unconsciously, she felt a sense of joy in her heart. Songheng, we have succeeded. The world is unpredictable, and just as she turned around, Guhua had already flown in front of her. Wan's pupils, from small to large, reflected the figure of Guhua attacking her, carrying a grudge of failure, hot and fierce, roaring towards her. Her ear rang with a voice of Songheng, hysterical as she said, Wan Yin. Bang! In an instant, the world was quiet, and her chest was heavily hit by Guhua, like a tattered paper kite, her body drifting with the wind. The hot liquid splashed onto Wan Yin's face, making her gaze murky and dark. She futilely clenched her palms. The wound was gurgling with blood, accompanied by a piercing pain, dripping from the body and slowly seeping into the earth. The ground shook, and she seemed to hear the roar of dragons and the mournful cries of birds. Songheng, I feel so hurt. Where are you? Drowsy, Wan Yin seemed to have fallen into a void. In my mind, seemingly realistic and illusory scenes surge out, and the scenes in my dreams come one after another, quietly flowing away. Some of them emerge with immense clarity, some are like phantom shadows, blurry and chaotic. Intermittent. Wan Yin seemed to float above the 9 heavens and sink into a fairyland on earth. A strong and lush green old tree, rooted in front of her like a waterfall of vines, seemed to conceal a huge secret. At the moment when she lifted the branches, she almost stopped breathing. A stream of clear water rushes forward, with green mountains on both sides embracing each other. When facing the water, the falling petals are like a patch, scattered in the grass and covered in colorful brocade. Looking from afar, one can only see smoke hills shrouded in mist, pine winds winding through countless valleys, and lush trees. Calm down and listen, the waterfall resounds like a spring, and the gurgling water flows like pearls and jade. Beside the Biyan River, the mountain path meanders. She walked along the path, as if walking through countless mountains and rivers. Suddenly, the crisp sound of a wind chime echoed through my ears, and the innocent laughter of a child echoed. All right, Xiaokuan, let me down, I'm dizzy. Amidst the tinkling of the spring water, a towering bird, thousands of miles long, plunged to the ground. Its spine is like a mountain, and its wings spread out like clouds hanging to the horizon. However, when it landed, it was as light as a feather, cautious as if afraid of disturbing the delicate young girl on her back. There is an elegant woman stepping out from the depths of the tower, graceful, like a light cloud covering the moon, flowing wind and snow. With just one silhouette, it can create ripples in one's heart. Heart, you're causing trouble with Kunpeng Shinjun again. At present, even though her eyebrows and eyes were slightly angry, they were still as bright as lotus flowers, as pure as jade, not stained with the mortal world. The girl who was called Xin was not afraid, but immediately flipped off the big bird, walked lightly, and ran towards the woman, out of breath, rushing into her arms. Mother! Little Qimen flies so high, I can touch the clouds above the 9 heavens. They scatter on my face and disappear. When I turn my head and pass by, they actually gather together again. The woman carefully closed her clothes and said, "All right, I'm only allowed to play for a while today. If you don't take care of the flowers, plants, and vines, your father will punish you when he comes back." The girl pouted and said dejectedly, "Why does Dad always let me play with flowers and grass? I'm not good at this. Mom, please help me talk to Dad and ask him to change my cultivation, Mom." The woman's voice was gentle like water. "Stay calm, your father is also for you, and you will benefit in the future." The girl looked dejected and reluctantly was led by the woman, moving towards the attic. Suddenly, her eyes lit up and she turned to the big bird and shouted, "Little Qimen, your mother asked you to take me to play. Tomorrow and today, after completing the task assigned by your mother, come find me immediately. It's a deal." The woman chuckled and reminded the bird helplessly, "Ah Qimen, you can't fly so high again tomorrow." The big bird waved its arms, spiraled up in the wind, surpassed the clouds, carried the blue sky, and rushed towards the summit of 90,000 miles, flying south. The scene continues, and the girl cries intermittently, sobbing uncontrollably. And the big bird fell to the side, its huge wings oozing blood, weak and powerless. "Xiao Qimen, what's wrong with you? Why are you bleeding so much? I feel so sorry. How can I help you?" The big bird's wings twitched slightly, trembling as it lifted up, intending to wipe away the tears on the girl's face. "What should I do? Both my parents have gone to the West Wilderness to attend White Tiger Brothers' sealing ceremony. How can I help you?" Suddenly, she seemed to remember something and ran quickly into the attic, then rushed back holding onto a pile of things. This, and this are all things my mother smeared on me when I usually bleed from abrasions. This. I've seen my father wrap it up for her before. Xiao Qimen, don't be afraid, I can definitely cure you." The girl was in a hurry, shaking bottles of elixir and pouring it onto the big bird. Then, she pulled gauze and meticulously wrapped it around it. The big bird didn't struggle either, just indulged the girl and let her do whatever she wanted, afraid of her sadness, and occasionally let out joyful cries. "All right." The girl clapped her hands and looked at the hastily tied gauze, feeling proud. In this way, it shouldn't hurt anymore. "Next, you listen to me. I took Li Chuan and even stole the peaches sent by the underworld. Dad said that tonifying qi and blood will definitely stop your injury. I'll feed you." The sunlight sprinkles on the trees, casting mottled shadows. With the girl's every frown and smile, she gilded the brilliant crimson glow with a layer of gold. The girl propped up her chin and looked at the big bird catkins that were half closing her eyelids beside her. "Xiao Qimen, you love to travel the most. You can't fly anymore, isn't it very boring? By the way, I learned a song from my uncle and uncle, it's very beautiful. I'll sing it to you, gathering like flying frost unwilling to melt, scattered like dust scattered in different directions. Idiots talk about dreams, they are all loved by the Tao. If you can't ask for it, you will favor me, if you can't ask for it, you will embrace me. Is it the wind or the flag that moves? Is reincarnation different? You are outside of me, turning into a white cloud and coming. Pushing away the lonely city for thousands of miles, blowing through the spring breeze for thousands of years. I am you on the way, with a green mountain crashing into your arms. Silently, only then can I feel at ease when I see you." The sound of Qingyue's song passed through the forest, carrying purity and innocence that was incomprehensible to the lyrics, leisurely entering the night. The Milky Way is vast, with stars all over the sky. Among the stars, there are a few faint and bright rays of light, shining brightly, pointing eastward with a straight handle. Chapter 9. Zhuang Zhou Mengdie. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. As if experiencing a long chaos, one was trapped in this dream, floating and sinking, for an unknown time. In an instant, the scenery cracked and there was a huge tail tearing an illusion. In the mist, she seemed to see a golden light, so piercing that she couldn't open her eyes. Like a leopard peeking through a narrow tube, not knowing the whole picture, she could only squint her eyes in the strong light, trying to catch a glimpse. Yes, Zhang. The strong wind howled, tinnitus persisted, and Luan curled up in the void due to a splitting headache. Gradually, this pain rushed towards her veins, causing her to tremble and her soreness to surge. Not long after, Luan felt his soul soaring into the air, as if colliding into a small cage. This cage is warm and hot, confining all her strength. As soon as she moved forward, she grabbed onto her and couldn't go any further. Then she opened her eyes. The first thing that entered Luan Yin's eyes was Zhang Heng's withered face and his emaciated jawline. Zhang Heng was like a sitting statue, as cold as ice. Bai Luan was haggard when he first met him, as if a deity had been stained with dust. At this moment, he was closing his eyes and wrapping her in his arms, enough to contain her, as if he valued her as a treasure, afraid of exerting too much force. She didn't know why, so she said, "Zhang Heng." When making a sound, Luan Yin only heard it, and his voice was hoarse and weak like a fly. Zhang Heng's body trembled, and his closed eyelids lifted lightly. She saw his cold eyes, dry and silent, covered in bloodstains, and his pupils were clear, reflecting his dilapidated appearance. Zhang Heng remained silent, while Fu Luan sat up. Then, with two palms, passing through her back, as if rehearsing countless times, they proficiently delivered divine power to her. Luan was momentarily stunned, and suddenly remembered what had happened before he fell into a coma. She lowered her head to look at her chest, but there were no bloodstains left. Gu Hua's hard blow should not be underestimated. She suddenly understood that this was Zhang Heng's inexplicable effort. Luan Yin looked back at his pale, snowy face and held his hand, saying, Don't lose, I'm fine." Zhang Heng kept on delivering mana. Luan felt anxious, but a sweet and fishy smell surged in his throat, and then he coughed fiercely. Cough, cough. Zhang Heng stopped, feeling lost and supporting her in panic, as if touching a precious porcelain vase. "I'm sorry, I'm too impatient, I'm sorry." In several days and nights of embracing her, he repeatedly stroked her hair, held her cheeks, and before he could rejoice in the return, he was once again trapped in this millennium-long nightmare of losing his beloved. He fought hard to kill all the demons in his sight over the years, but due to obsession, he found it difficult to improve his cultivation in another way, just like her. He transformed into a god of killing, and when he went deep into various demon caves alone, he never felt afraid. He was never afraid when facing countless demon seas alone. But when he once again fell into the dilemma of losing her, he began to regret why he used resentment to treat resentment, why he couldn't restrain his sharpness, focus on cultivation, wait for her to return, and protect her comprehensively. Although everyone said she was dead, he didn't believe it. These days, he has even been thinking that if she really can't sleep this time, he would be lucky to have found her and be able to sleep with her here. Zhang Heng's heart was full of twists and turns, but he only said to Luan Yin, "I raised you up, I didn't protect you well." Luan Yin finally recovered, swallowed the discomfort, and chuckled, "Hee, you're already very powerful." "I'm not doing well, isn't there anything wrong?" Zhang Heng didn't answer, just lowered his head, feeling dejected and disheartened, his face still floating, and unable to restrain his grief. Luan felt somewhat helpless and thought he was blaming himself, unsure of how to relieve him. She looked around and found them in a dark cave. In the distance, the sound of rushing water could be faintly heard, and the place where they were sitting at this moment was an independent rock platform. Below the platform, an underground current surged, leading to an unknown direction. She had nothing to say and asked, "Where's Gu Hua?" "I killed him." Luan Yi nodded and said, she has a grudge against you. What is the general event? Let's hear it. Zhang understood her intentions somewhat and didn't want to make her worry. He also mentioned this matter in anger. 2,000 years ago, my husband, Xing Tian, who I had received, raised his army to seize the throne. At that time, the teacher, the heavenly emperor, was weak and asked me to help him stabilize the situation. I failed to persuade Xing Tian to surrender, and during the battle, I was ordered to behead his head. Gu Huo was a childhood sweetheart to him and was pregnant with his child, about to give birth. After this incident, she heard the news and her mind was stirred. When I arrived, her child and she were. Luan Yin held Song Heng's hand and said, "This has nothing to do with you. You have only done what you should do. Since Xing Tian has done this, he should know that success or failure depends on heaven. Besides, as a husband, he never thought about his wife's situation at the time and took action. Why do you feel guilty?" Song Heng looked at the small hand that held him, delicate and white, as if frozen in snow. His eyes couldn't help but dim, and he spoke a little more. "That's it. Later, I heard that she was reborn and stranded in the demon world. I thought the world would be big, so it would be better for her to live here. After all, she worked with her husband. But unexpectedly, she resented me so much. I thought she was collecting young children with the obsession of returning to the immortal body, but it turns out that she was willing to exchange her life for her own and put you in danger." Luan Yin took away his hand, patted his shoulder, and smiled comfortingly. "Oh, things are unpredictable. Who would have thought that today would happen?" Suddenly, speaking of this conversation, Luan tilted her head and asked him, "So, you're the god of war in the heavenly realm? No wonder you're so powerful." Song Heng lacked interest and said nonchalantly, "After Xingtian passed away, there were no soldiers in the heavenly realm to command. Over the years, the world has been turbulent, and monsters have taken advantage of this opportunity to stir up trouble. The talent in the immortal realm has withered, so the heavenly emperor has given me a name. It seems that you are highly valued by the heavenly emperor." Luan remembered him and said with a majestic demeanor, "So you're a dragon. Why didn't you say anything before? So I thought you were a python. So what is your true identity?" He glanced at her with a deep sea-like gaze and said, "Back then, my parents fought with my master and died in battle when I was very young. According to my master, I am a descendant of Zhou Yin." As Luan Yin had anticipated, she remembered the anomaly. "But I see that your magic is like a source of wood, but your true body is not very much like Zhou Yin. Is Zhou Yin's true body different from what is rumored?" "The rumor is accurate. My original source of Dharma was the fire of Zhou Yin." He explained in a deep voice, "After my parents died in battle on the battlefield, I was caught by a big demon and almost lost my life. It was my master who appeared in time, picked me up, and drove the divine power to bring me back to life, transforming me from death to rebirth. Therefore, the source of the Dharma changed and condensed the fire into wood." "What about your master?" Chapter 10. The Rise of Turbulent Tides. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Song Heng suddenly covered himself with a layer of frost. He clenched his fists, wishing to penetrate the void and take revenge. Killed by a demon, passed away. The air was momentarily stagnant, like a cold sword inserted between the two. In an instant, there seemed to be sadness turning into substance, flowing slowly. Luan thought to himself that this was the fundamental reason why he hated demons. Unable to bear to see him mourn his sadness, she had to change the topic again. "Where is this?" "The underground of the demon realm desert." "How did we get here?" Song Heng was restless and his eyes darkened. "After Gu Hua's death, the original skeleton formation opened a pit. I was worried about the desert sandstorm and there was no shelter around. If there were any more monsters invading, which would hinder the healing time, I had to take you to jump down." "Did we stay for a long time?" "I didn't pay close attention, it's been around 20 days. She was extremely surprised and said, "It's been so long. But how do I feel like I just now?" Then she thought to herself, "So, have you been delivering mana to me for so many days? How are you? Let me see." Sangheng dodged for a moment and said, "It's nothing. You have been injured yet to recover, and you have been fighting against that big demon for so long. Don't hold on, we still have a long way to go. What needs to be resolved early?" Sangheng thought of her recent touch and his ears turned slightly red. He grabbed her wrist and said, "It's really nothing, it's not like losing all the time. After a few days of rest, it's no longer a big deal." What Sangheng didn't say was that a few days before he came down, he desperately lost his magic, but later lost his strength and fainted. When he woke up, he found that Luan's body was finally improving and he was worried about the presence of monsters, so he began to slowly recover his strength. Luan was skeptical and said, "Let's rest for a few days and fully recover before leaving." "Not right, although we have broken through the maze right now, the demon realm is full of danger. If we stay for a while, there will be a bit of danger. Your situation was unclear before, and I dare not move forward rashly. Now that you are awake, we need to hurry up and leave this place." Luan thought for a moment and thought deeply, "Okay, let's go then." Sangheng helped Luan stand up and looked around. "Where is the hole you mentioned?" He slapped his hand towards a spot at the top of the cave without moving at all. "Another one, still no response." He ran his spell and calculated for a moment. "The time is too long, the mechanism is tightly closed. What should we do? Can't we break it open?" "No, we are currently underground and we don't know what's going on above. If the quicksand accumulates severely, it will be forcefully removed, and the pit will collapse. If I don't observe for a while and don't protect you, it will be even more troublesome. What should we do then? The demon race is full of cunning. In the land of the demon realm, there must be multiple escape routes. The underground rivers are intertwined, and we can definitely leave by following them." Luan nodded and pulled Sangheng's collar, following him as he groped forward. The corridor was long and narrow, and also very dim. The two of them leaned against the edge of the cave, relying on the faint light emanating from the front. As we walked, the trend of the corridor changed and gradually became wider. The underground river passed under their feet, and by this time, they were completely on both sides of the road, with no hidden currents visible. But at this moment, they were not worried about getting lost at all, because the sound of the water ahead was getting louder and louder, echoing in the cave like thousands of soldiers and horses, making people unable to imagine how magnificent the watershed ahead should be. Without waiting for them to ponder deeply, the front door suddenly opened up and a strong wind came rushing towards them. "There is a wind vent ahead, it may be a bit cold. You can take shelter behind me." Luan, because his injury was not healed, did not show off his strength. After hearing Sangheng's words, he hid behind him. In a moment, he said, "We're here." Luan Yin leaned out from behind him and for a moment, a riverbank appeared before the two of them. Above the riverbank, there is a cascading waterfall, and below the waterfall, there is a large and turbulent underground river, surrounded by a network of tributaries that converge here. Ahead, there are karst pearls the size of thumbs, round and rustic, emitting a faint yellow light, fully embedded above the rock wall. By the light, one could see clearly where the two were located, surrounded by folds, cracks, and intertwined gullies. However, near the water, the rocks were eroded and fractured, causing darkness. Looking deeper into the light, there seems to be some trembling. She was just about to take a closer look when suddenly a gust of wind flowed through her. Sangheng was already very fast, and a green light hit her. Following his hand, Luan Yin saw a monster lying by the hidden river ahead, resembling an ape with a white head and bare feet. It seemed that it had been killed by Sangheng and said, "What is this?" "This is the Zhu Yan ape demon, who is the most capable of causing chaos and is extremely prone to military disasters." She understood and approached to examine. Unexpectedly, before Yin could carefully study the demon, Guang glanced at the hidden river. Her heart skipped a beat and she shouted, "Songheng, come and take a look at the river." In the center of the deep and dark river ahead, there are various monster corpses floating with terrifying forms of death, while around them, crimson shadows surge and blood flows into a river. The smell of blood seeped into the tip of Luan's nose along with the tide, causing her blood to surge and she began to vomit. Songheng helped to slow down for a while before she could carefully examine these monsters. Luan, being obedient and enduring the unpleasant smell, pulled Songheng over and pointed to the strange snake in front of him, which had two separate bodies. "This monster looks so ugly, what is it?" Songheng looked at her fingertips and said, "This is a fat snake demon, mostly gathered in the Huanxi Hill of the demon realm, thriving in the western wilderness. It will make the flowing water dry up for hundreds of miles, and there will be little rain due to prolonged drought. It is also because it has spawned many, so there are many deserts in the western wilderness." Luan, recalling the discomfort in the desert before, couldn't help but feel fortunate and said, "It's good to die. This extreme monster has committed many evil deeds while living." She pointed to a six-legged monster fish with a fish body and a snake head and said, "Well, I've seen it in the Monster Atlas. Is this the Ranyu fish demon?" Songheng nodded and said, "Ranyomu can eat it, which can dispel nightmares, ward off evil and dispel evil. Do you want it? I'll go get it for you." She glanced at the deep blood flowing on the river, her gaze touching the monster's lifeless state, full of strange and varied forms, and the stench surged up again. "No, I can't take it down, let me eat it. I'd rather die in a nightmare." Songheng chuckled and said, "Okay, then forget it. When do you want it? I'll kill another one for you now." After he finished speaking, Yin suddenly realized a problem. "Songheng, here, so many monsters have died, which indicates." Songheng's expression straightened, and he continued with her words, "This indicates that there are quite dangerous monsters lurking ahead." The two of them exchanged a glance and coincidentally looked ahead, more precisely, the stone gate buried by the waterfall. In front of the door, there was a faint pile of monster corpses as high as hills, and it was not difficult to see that there had been a bloody battle here. And in the end, they all died by this door, whether they had just escaped or wanted to move forward. Even more troublesome is that the only channel ahead is here.